If you've ever labeled your child as explosive, strong-willed, sensitive, or angry, we have created a course that is here to support you. Our brand new anger course is now available for purchase. It's available right now. You're going to get 35 video lessons between 1 and 4 minutes long that are practical, insightful, useful, and based off of what real parents were asking us for when it comes to angry kids. It's available right now. It's brand new. We cannot wait to support you with this course. Head to the link in the show notes to grab it.
Jess, we recorded a trilogy, and I love myself a good trilogy.
It's giving Lord of the Rings.
Thank you for understanding that reference.
Obviously.
I mean, I have been going through all of the books, including all the ones preceding even the Silmarillion and everything. So
Now it's giving nerd.
Yep, I know. Okay, so this trilogy is about the sensitive child or sensitive children in general. And it was supposed to only be one episode, but Jess, just kept talking and talking and talking, which makes it sound like it's going to be super interesting for people to listen to. But the reality is there was a ton to talk about.
There was a lot to talk about.
And we really wanted to give this topic the time and attention it deserved in order to reframe sensitivity from a problem, which maybe not all people think, but let's say a problem, into a strength that requires understanding, structure, and emotional attunement. So we talk about stories and all that. In this first episode, we really get into the understanding temperament and biology, early signs, the types of sensitive kids, all that kind of stuff. And then we go further and further into it in the second and third part of this 3-part series.
Yeah, I am really excited for our listeners to get these episodes because I know we've been asked about sensitive kids so many times.
Yes.
And especially this first one, the one that you're about to listen to, is really the foundations of sensitivity. So like I just re-listened to it and I think the listener will really come away feeling like they understand sensitivity and if they have a sensitive child or not. And I think it's just such a buzzword right now. Like everybody's talking about it, but like what is it actually? So I'm really excited for people to listen to every episode in this trilogy, as you would call it.
Thank you.
But I think this one will be really eye-opening for a lot of people about themselves and their kids. So
Right.
I'm excited.
So I would say enough of this preamble. Let people listen.
Enjoy.
Welcome to Robot Unicorn, hosted by my parents, Jess and Scott. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Good morning, Mr. Vanderbilt.
Don't use my last name on this public platform. How's it going?
It's good. I feel like it's been a while since we've recorded a podcast.
We say that every time we record because we're
We're
only doing it once a month.
And I've been around the world since the last time we've been here.
Mm-hmm. Leaving me on my own.
Yep. Scott's been on his own.
Crying in the corner.
Everyone's going to feel so sad for you.
You think that's true?
No.
I doubt people will feel sad for
I
me.
don't. Nor should they. Yeah, no, it's been an interesting switch. Scott and I were just saying this, that he used to travel for work for like 10 years, constantly. And I was always at home with the kids. And lately, just because of the way our roles have kind of shifted, I've been traveling for work and for joy. I traveled to Italy with my mom, which was super fun. And Scott's been staying home with the kids. And so our roles have really reversed. And now I'm the one here with jet lag, trying to rally and do all the things. And Scott's sitting pretty at home like, hey, I've been sleeping. I've been in my own bed.
Also sleeping better because I don't have someone else in there with me.
Yeah. We've just been saying, though, that I think because we've both lived each other's lives, like I've been the one at home with the kids and you've been the one on the road. We actually both are entering this season where I'm traveling a bit more for work, like with a lot of compassion for each other and understanding for how the other feels and the stresses and joys and challenges and whatever that comes with both. So that's been cool. But Scott has made a point to let me know that I did not have this compassion for him when he used to travel for work.
I did let her know that, yes.
I definitely, like being the parent who travels, when I was the one at home, I think I was always like, oh, must be nice. Must be nice to go out for dinner and get to do cool things and see different countries and all of those things. And I mean, there is an element where it is cool. But
there are parts, yeah.
Yeah, there's parts where it's cool. Like You get to see something different. You get to get out of your house. You think you're going to get a full night of sleep, but really you don't because you're jet lagged. So there is parts that are cool, but what I didn't give Scott credit for when he used to travel was it is also difficult and tiring, and you miss your own bed. And I have celiac, and I can only eat Starbucks egg bites so many times before I'm ready to lose my mind because there's never any gluten-free food on the road. So I feel like I should have or could have maybe had more compassion on you in those days.
Well, it was more the tiredness.
Yeah.
And I was saying this to you. There was a few things that I did when I traveled. Like I was in the hotel gym every day to make sure that it just helps you get on the schedule. You go out for a walk as soon as it's bright out. You do all these different things. Try and eat healthy, eat on schedule, on a proper schedule. And just trying to give you a few
suggestions.
Tips to...
My hard thing is, and this is maybe my thing to work through, is that basically any spare moment I have, I just feel like I should be working on the book. So where I would usually go to the gym or where I usually would wake up early, I'm just like, oh, I have an hour, I should probably write. So the book is taking over my spare time. Mm-hmm. And so now that I'm home, I'm hoping, I need to get back into regularly working out because for both of us, that's a huge thing for
Definitely
our
helps you
mental
sleep better.
well-being and helps you sleep better. So I'm going to get back into that. But
yeah, especially with travel across time zones, physical activity is a huge benefit.
And I went to Italy, so that's 6 hours difference. Then I came home for just a week. And then I went to California, which is 3 hours the other direction in time zone. So I think by the time I got home, my body is like, what is happening?
And there's me just kind of chuckling. Being
I'm like, I don't know when to be hungry.
Jess,
I don't know when to sleep. My body has no clue what's happening.
Just
right
imagine
now.
doing that, but having to do that for 5 more weeks in a row.
I know. I have a lot more reverse compassion on you. But I think at the time too, we just had a baby. So then I was like, as soon as you got home, I'm like, I've been up all night, and I have compassion on myself too. I've been breastfeeding. I've not slept the whole time you've been gone. Here, take the baby. I need to go sleep. And now our kids, at least they all sleep through the night. So that's
and
a
also,
little different.
To be fair, I wanted to do that. But that's why I also liked going out and doing things where you're like, I was already out at the park and doing all these things this week. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I just want to be home. And you're like, let's go to the park. Let's do this.
Anyways, this is completely unrelated to today's topic.
Maybe.
Is it? Well, yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Today, we're going to talk about how to parent the sensitive child. Or the child with heightened sensitivity to their environment.
And I think folks have been ready and excited for this conversation. And I know that I am.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. I think if I get any question the most, it's how do I raise my sensitive child? What do I do different for a sensitive kid? Do I have a sensitive kid? I feel like I just get these questions constantly. And we've been asked about 1 million times to talk about this on the podcast. So I'm thrilled. I'm so excited.
To be honest, I spent a bunch of time going through research, and I felt like I was reading, it almost felt like a deja vu with this topic and one other one that we're going to be recording for, I think, next week or the week after. So I was a little confused that we were doing it again in my mind, but I guess you're saying that we did not do that. And we have used parts of this in other episodes, but not specifically focused on this.
We talk about sensitive kids a lot, but we have not focused an entire episode on the sensitive child.
Maybe I should have better memory. I mean, we've only done, this will be our 83rd episode now. Maybe
only 83. I feel like that's a lot of episodes.
Well, I mean, it is a lot, but maybe I should actually remember the fact that we have not done this yet.
You know what? You should.
I guess. That's what happens when you have kids. Your memory goes straight out the window.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, right. All right, let's get started then, Jessica. Stop taking us off track, please. Mm-hmm. It's very distracting.
I'm ready.
All right, so many parents will come to you feeling exhausted in your practice, and they might say, my child has these huge, epic meltdowns over things that seem so small, like the tag on their shirt or the sound of the toilet flushing, which I know a couple of our kids hate the sound of toilets flushing. What is the first thing that you tell a parent who's in that moment or has a child that is sensitive over these seemingly small things and feeling like they're dealing with a level of intensity that's just off the charts and doesn't seem to fit what's going on in the child's life?
Yeah, so to back it up a little bit, I get these clients in all the time, right? So whether their child is this child who's like, and the parent says to me, Jess, they can't tolerate a toilet flushing. they have these epic meltdowns. They're so loud. Or in the older years, I might hear things like they don't want to go to school. They complain about how loud their classroom is. Whenever a friend says something to them, they take it extremely personally. Like they're so sensitive to rejection. And when I start to hear these things in my head, a light bulb starts to go off saying, we're probably dealing with a sensitive child here. And so usually one of the first things that I do for a parent is, instead of telling them, okay, here's how to respond and here's what to do, I take it back and I say, let's talk about the different temperaments for children. And so I think that's where we should start today as well. Temperament is really, I think a good way to describe it is it's the biological basis for personality. And so what that means is every child is born with their innate temperament. So this is just part of who they are. I always say to parents, you didn't make your child sensitive. They were born this way. So a lot of parents will be like, did I do something in my pregnancy? Like, was I so stressed out that they became sensitive? Or was it the way I responded to them when they were born? And I think it's important to note that sensitivity is typically something that your child is born with.
Wait, so you're saying, though, that it's not related to the nature versus nurture debate. You're saying it's nature.
Yeah.
It's genetic. It's kind of ingrained in your brain, built into your genetic makeup, and not really related at all to how you're parented.
So, of course, our parenting can impact. I was just reading this article, and I can find it for you, Scott, but it was by this researcher, and she researches babies and sensitivity in babies. And one of the ways that she researches it for babies is she will have this jack-in-a-box. So kids as young as, let's say, 5, 6 months old. And she will put the jack-in-a-box and open it up for the babies, right? And some babies, when they see it, they get all excited. Like, they love the surprise. They're all excited by the surprise, and they think it's fun. And other babies, it's like they're watching a horror movie. And it's the scariest thing. Like, the shock of seeing this jack-in-a-box is like terrifying to them, kind of like the toilet flushing, like what we were talking about before. And there's other various articles and research that have been done for decades already showing that we can see sensitivity in as young as babies and in the way that they respond to the world. And so some babies just simply respond to stimuli in the world in a different way than others. And that's the sensitivity trait that we're talking about. And so what I am saying is that there is something innate and biological to sensitivity that parents can't blame themselves for that. A lot of parents will.
Like, they can't change the fact that their child is sensitive, is
Exactly.
what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, you just have a sensitive child. And the way that we parent can often shape the resilience, the ability that a child can deal with their sensitivity, how they cope. And so sometimes when we're parenting a sensitive child, and we'll get into this, and we're kind of bubble wrapping them, thinking they can't handle anything in the world, then we can decrease, I guess, their resilience to deal with the tough things in the world, which makes them, even more sensitive. So that's where the nurture comes in and is really important. But what we do know is, as young as babies, we can see differences in temperament.
Okay.
So what I would educate parents on is that there's 3 different temperaments that children are born with, and 2 of them involve sensitivity. So the first temperament, and I don't really love this label, but what I see it often referred to as easy. And so easy, and what I would prefer to say would be flexible.
Is that like a child being easygoing?
Yeah.
Or is that something different from that?
No, I'd say easygoing, flexible. So I'll give you an example. Let's say dinner is at 5 o'clock every single night, like at our house. One night, you're like, you know what? Everything's getting pushed back. We're going to have dinner at 5:30 instead. The easygoing or flexible child's like, hey, whatever. They might get a little hangry. They might get a little bit like, oh, I wish we were eating at 5, disappointed, but they can handle the 30-minute difference. Your sensitive child might have alarm bells ringing in their head instantly, right? They're more susceptible to get hangry. So they're going to need to eat at 5, and they maybe can't tolerate pushing back their hunger another 30 minutes without a huge meltdown. They need routine, or they crave the structure a lot more. So changing something as simple as 30 minutes of dinner might just set them off internally, and they might have a more difficult time adapting to that small change. So that's one example that you can probably see in your children. Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask, the example you're giving, though, we have 3 daughters, 3 young daughters from 3 to 8. And maybe I'm misremembering this, but I feel as though all 3 of them at that 3-year-old age would have had troubles with that. Is the sensitivity piece, like what you're explaining there, that example, I feel like that also kind of changes over time. So I can just imagine someone listening to you saying, I have a 7-year-old and I have a 3 or 4-year-old, and the 3 or 4-year-old cannot handle waiting an extra 30 minutes for food. So
Based
they
on
must
age.
be sensitive.
Yeah. And it's just one example, but you have to think of the flexibility. So if I think about our oldest when she was 3, she was much more flexible. Of course, she still had tantrums. I think any doctor would be worried anyone who understands development would be worried if you said my child never has a tantrum and they never get angry or they never get upset. Easygoing children or flexible children still get upset sometimes. They still have tantrums. They still get hangry. They're humans, right? But on the whole, if you're going to quickly change, if you have to change a nap so that they're driving in the car instead of you're napping at home, or you're at the park and you're like, oh shoot, you know what, we have to go and I didn't give you your 5-minute warning. And for the most part, they're like, okay, I'll come with you. Or you get to a family gathering and there's far more people there than they expected. And they're actually like, oh, fun, more people, like great. On the whole, our easygoing, flexible children can handle or tolerate change or these different things, like all of a sudden there's more people than they expected, a lot more easy than your sensitive child. Does that make sense? So you have to kind of look at the whole picture, not just one moment.
Yeah, right. And what you're explaining too, there's a lot of additional variables that you haven't, let's say in terms of going to that family event, if your 3-year-old didn't have their nap and is hungry.
Of course.
So I just feel like the example is a little bit too simplified.
Yeah.
I get what you're trying to get at. Like they're just overall just a little bit easier going. But I think it's important to point out the fact that that's a very simplified example.
Yeah. And I don't want you to picture that unless my child's kind of happy-go-lucky with everything, they're sensitive.
Yeah.
Like that's not what I'm trying to say.
That's my concern with you saying that is a parent listening or a grandparent or whoever is going to be like, oh, well then our toddler must be super sensitive because of this.
Yeah.
Or,
and also think about them as a baby, right? So I often will ask the parents I'm working with, what was your child like as a baby? And the sensitive kids are often like, oh, they cried all the time. They struggled to sleep. They struggled to feed. They were very loud. Like I always hear about these loud babies. Sometimes they were like, oh, they crawled so early. Like they were so active. And then there's on the flip side where they were very slow to warm, like they were scared of everyone that wasn't me. Mm-hmm. They never wanted to kind of socialize with other people that they didn't know super well. So sometimes we have to actually look back to these early baby stages as well to see the patterns over time, instead of just looking at a toddler who all toddlers are going to have tantrums. All toddlers are going to be sensitive to things. So I see what you're saying too, and it's hard to maybe make a really simple answer to that. And you have to look at the whole picture. And I think a lot of parents think they have sensitive kids, and perhaps they do. And perhaps they're just a toddler that has tantrums. So I think that's what you're trying to get at as well.
Nothing is ever black and white.
Right.
My favorite black and white statement. Nothing is ever black and white.
You know what, Scott? Let me say, I was listening to another podcast the other day and I was like, man, Scott would have had a lot of skeptical questions for this person. And I was kind of like, I'm kind of like as annoyed as I get with you always questioning me. I think it's important because sometimes you listen to a podcast and it's just so simplified and you're like, well, I do think that there's more. So I do appreciate your questions.
Well, and honestly, in a lot of the research too, I'm often skeptical of the research. And this is a future episode that we're planning on talking about single and or co-parenting. And some of the advice, I was thinking, like, this is so stupid. I don't understand. In the real world, yes. I just don't foresee this being the reality for that parent.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a tangent.
Friends, we have exciting news. The Anger course is now available. This course was created for parents of kids who would be labeled as angry, strong-willed, sensitive, or explosive. It's meant for kids ages 3 to 9 years old. Inside the course, you're going to find 35 video lessons, all between 1 and 4 minutes long, really easy to digest, covering everything from your triggers, how you view anger, of course, your childhood experiences, to what anger is and why it presents the way it does, and how even sensitivity plays into it. And then you'll finish it off with some scenarios and really practical tools. The whole thing's only an hour and a half long because we know you're busy. We can't wait to support you. Head to the link in the show notes to grab the Anger course right now. Let's go back to sensitive kids, right? So I've described, apparently not well, the easygoing child.
No, it was good. I just wanted to make sure that
no.
we don't immediately have people saying, oh,
For sure they're sensitive, yeah.
I have 3 kids and all 3 of them are highly sensitive for sure, because
Which is also possible.
it is possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I just don't want it to be based on your very simplified example.
Yes, that's fair. I think what we see, so let's go to sensitive kids, and there's kind of 2 branches where we typically see this. So one type of temperament and also typically sensitive is our slow to warm children. So these would be the children who are typically labeled shy, which I actually think there's nothing wrong with the word shy. We've tried to kind of change shy kids for so many years, but to me, shy is just, I reserve my truest self for the people that I trust, right? And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But slow to warm children, they take longer, as the title describes, to warm up to others. They might be the ones who cling closer to your leg as a toddler. They're the babies who they might not be quite as outgoing and like, hey, look at me, center of attention, right? They stay closer to you. It takes them longer to feel comfortable in a group setting. They might get more easily overwhelmed or overstimulated when there's tons of people around. And you might see that if these children are too busy, like you schedule too many things in a day, they can't handle that, right? They have big meltdowns. You can almost like predict with these children, like, hey, if I'm doing 3 things in a day, it's going to be too much. And for sure, they're going to have a big meltdown tonight. I think that's probably the biggest difference I've noticed in our oldest, who I would say is more of that easygoing temperament and thrives off the social situations.
Yeah.
Like that girl could be with friends and have social things like the entire day.
All week long.
Every day, all day.
And then she might get tired on the weekend, maybe, and want one day where she doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But like she never had those big meltdowns after a busy family thing. Like I feel like, and we have a lot of family, so that's why I'm picking on the family things. But like when we were with family, there's tons of people there. Yeah. And she's like, make me the center of attention. Like, I love this. Everyone talk to me. Where's the busiest place I can be in this room? Like, let me be there. Whereas I would say our other 2 daughters would be more slow to warm, and they'd be more on our leg, clinging to us, hold me, mommy, hold me, daddy, until they felt ready in their own time to venture forth.
Yeah.
With the slow to warm child, you also see they take more time maybe to even learn a new skill. Like I think about swimming with our daughter, who is a little more slow to warm. It just took her a bit of extra time, and she needed her own time, not to be forced. Like she couldn't be forced to learn biking or swimming. Like she just needed to kind of get to that on her own time. Whereas your more easygoing, flexible kid maybe just isn't, not that they're not thinking about it as deeply, but I think our sensitive kids, like there's a lot more like fear of what if I don't get it right? And what if
it's a frustration with getting it wrong for her. Because you're talking about our middle daughter right now. Frustration or possibility of getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And the possibility of getting hurt. Those are her 2 things that I find are often holding her back from trying something new.
And I think the third thing would be the possibility of someone's disappointed because I'm not getting it right.
Right.
Like I feel like she reads your face and she's like, are you okay? Are you disappointed? Are you happy with me? Like, so our sensitive kids are much more in tune with other people's emotions, other people's perceptions of them. I think they're more likely to become people pleasers just because they can read other people's emotions just so much. Whereas our other children don't have that maybe same spidey sense of other people's emotions. And then the third type of temperament, which is often also sensitive, a lot of researchers will call this quote unquote difficult, which I don't like, or inflexible, which I also don't really love. I like the description of active. So these are, or like intense. So these are the kids that are kind of born like raring to go. I see this.
Like me.
Like, yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but yeah, like you. Like they're born with like a fire inside of them. Like they're ready to go from day one. They're busy. They're go, 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 go. They don't always know when to slow down. They're maybe a little more likely to go anger-wise from like 0 to 100. Their emotions are big. They feel what they feel very deep, but they can sometimes move past it very quickly as well. And these kids, I think, often appear the most strong-willed, which maybe that's what you're having deja vu, because we talked about the strong-willed kids being very sensitive. And
yeah, I think so.
These kids can appear very strong-willed, but I think underneath that strong will, they're very sensitive, might be more sensitive to like textures, tags, the way things feel, the way things smell. and their response, whereas the slow to warm child's response might be to like pull back and pull closer to you. The active or intense child's response is to like get really mad and be like, I'm not doing that. And there can be some crossover. Like you can have your slow to warm child who appears to everyone else very cautious and quiet, and teachers and other people can't believe that in the home they're yelling and screaming at you and going from 0 to 100, right? So there can be some crossover. Those are the 3 styles of temperament that we are born with that I have seen and talked about the most often, and where I'll start to educate parents, and then we'll kind of get curious of like, where do you think your child fits? Because when we understand that this isn't our child just trying to drive us nuts or isn't something we've done wrong, then we can learn how to support our child based on who they are and how they were born, and to help them see sensitivity as a gift instead of as, this curse that they're going to have for their whole life.
So you're saying that, because it sounds like you were trying to answer my original question, the first thing you try to do is just help parents see where they might be in terms of temperament.
Yes. Because I find most parents who come in with these sensitive kids, whether they're older or younger, are like, what did I do to make my kid like this? And how do I fix it? Our question's always, how do I fix it? How do I stop them from being sensitive? How do I stop them from having this intense energy? How do I stop them from being so shy? And so I like to shift the mindset away from fixing to how do I create environments that support them in their sensitivity, and how do I help them cope with their sensitivity in healthy, helpful ways. It's not about getting rid of it. They'll always be sensitive. If you're born sensitive, you're always going to be sensitive. It's just, how do I live with
Ain't
this
that the truth?
And use it, right?
Yeah, because according to the research, with the proper environment at home, sensitivity often lends itself to children becoming incredibly creative.
Yes.
And being able to do amazing things given the right environment.
You know what's interesting and self-reflective? I, for many years, would not have labeled myself sensitive because I was not the big meltdown kid like you. And I think for many years I looked at you and I'm like, well, Scott's, not that you're the big meltdown adult, but Scott's sensitive, because if you hear stories of you as a kid, right? Like you were loud, you had these big emotions, you had this intensity to you.
I didn't stop running.
You didn't stop moving.
Yeah.
You had this strong sense of justice and you wanted to fight for people. And that was, I think, the way of your empathy coming out, right? Is like, this is wrong. I'm going to fight for this person and I'm going to...
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixture of a whole bunch of different things, right?
So many factors. But I think that you were born sensitive, right? Yep. As if you hear your parents talk about your earliest days, loud and intense would be descriptions of who you were.
I did not like being messy. Apparently, as a baby, as soon as I was eating solid foods, I had to have...
a
wet cloth beside me so I could wipe my face off constantly, because I just hated being, and to this day it's still the same thing. It always feels like there's something on my face when I'm eating and I have to wipe it off, and
exactly,
even if there isn't.
But if I look back on myself, I would say I'm still slow to warm, and I think I was definitely slow to warm as a child. Like I was different. I was very quiet. I wasn't the one who had tons of friends in school. It took me a little bit to find the courage to like share how I felt. And I never wanted to be the center of attention. I always kind of wanted to be pulled back. And I was very sensitive in terms of if someone made a comment to me that I felt or I perceived as rejection, I would take it. And I always thought this was like the worst thing about me, that no matter what someone would say about me, I would take it like so deeply personal. And for so long, even of my adult life, I'm like, I just wish I didn't take everything so personal. Like everything everyone says, I take it as if like...
Even if they say nice things, honestly.
Like I take it in a bad way?
You potentially could see it as...
offensive.
Well, what do they mean by that exactly, though?
Yeah, and I feel like I would walk into a room, even as a kid, and be able to read everybody's emotions in a room. Be like, that person's having a hard day. That person feels that way. And then it would just feel like it was my job to fix it. And probably, all of therapists have their reasons for getting into therapy. I don't think this is my reason, but I think part of why I was so interested in psychology was to understand why people feel these emotions and where does it come from, and just to like try and probably make sense of even my own perceptions of people, right? So I think this is a good example of how sensitivity can show up in 2 different ways. We're both sensitive people, but...
Yeah, there's an additional vigilance that we both had.
Yes.
Because you say that, but I feel like I could also read
emotions
you also
very
can,
well, and you still
too,
can.
Right? Yeah.
Scott and I are both like very in tune. If we're in the room and someone's off, like I feel like we both have a good sense of that almost immediately. But yours also might have come from trauma. So
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So this is completely unrelated to actually my line of questioning that I had, but you're describing active, difficult, strong-willed kids, whatever, that temperament. But then there seems to be a lot of overlap with neurodivergence and ADHD. I think I had a question about that later on, but I kind of want to ask that now because
Sure.
how do you know?
What's what?
Like it sounds kind of like it's one and the same, but different, but not really. And it's confusing to me because you're describing a lot of things that are what were used to diagnose me with ADHD.
So there is a lot of overlap of people with ADHD or neurodivergent people who are also being sensitive. And so being sensitive doesn't equal you have ADHD or you're neurodivergent. People can be sensitive and not have, let's say, the diagnostic criteria for ADHD or autism or other things that would make them neurodivergent. And a lot of neurodivergent people are sensitive. So it's kind of like both and.
Is it possible that I think in a lot of ways society has over pathologized certain things? So like even whether, I don't know, whether it's ADHD or sensitivity, I don't know, maybe one of those has just become mainstream, kind of like how people use trauma to describe every possible thing that is not great in their life, like that's trauma. Is it possible that people are also using the term sensitivity in a similar way when it's maybe not even sensitivity? Or is it just a lack of understanding of what it means to be sensitive and that's why it's used that way? And same with trauma?
I see trauma a little differently. I think sensitivity, I think more people are claiming that and believing that about themselves. And it's just not something that we ever talked about before. I don't necessarily see sensitivity as being overly used as long as we're not using it to like be like, oh, well, they're sensitive, so they can't go to school. Or like that's where I would maybe have the issue with it, where it's like, oh, they're sensitive, so I'm not going to let them do this, or I'm not going to make them do that. And I think the problem or the issue that I'm mostly seeing when it comes to people labeling their kids as sensitive is that it comes with a bubble wrapping and with well, they can't do these things because they're sensitive. Okay. And then I think that's where the nurture, like the nature-nurture debate comes in, where it's like, well, now are they just more sensitive because they don't think that they're capable of doing hard things? Do you know what I mean?
Right, like maybe we've amplified that because
the trait was
we didn't allow them to, or sort of coach them through their sensitivities and create that environment where they can learn to live with it and actually for them to develop more fully with the sensitivity.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I was actually just on a podcast yesterday where they were interviewing me about temperament, and the mom was sharing a great story about her own therapy with her sensitive kid. And she said when her kid was 2, she started noticing just the difference in this child versus she's 4 children, and her other children, like these very slow to warm, very scared. And she said her first instinct was, well, I must protect them at all costs. Like, I don't want my child to be scared. And so she gave this example of her child watching Daniel Tiger, which is a pretty age-appropriate show for a 2-year-old. There's really, like, if you're going to do a non-scary TV show, I feel like Daniel Tiger is one of your best bets,
pretty much
right?
The best, yep.
And there was a piece of the episode where the child got scared. And they got scared because I think the teacher had a negative emotion, like was frustrated with Daniel Tiger or something. And that was too overwhelming with for the child. He didn't like how the teacher got frustrated with Daniel Tiger. There's a sensitivity, right? I don't like it when someone else has an emotion whenever that episode would come on, the mom would just like turn off the TV or skip past that part because she didn't want her child to feel scared. And what happened was then the child learned in their head, oh, I can't handle that. I can't handle that scene. It's too scary. And so the first piece of advice that this therapist actually gave to the mom was, you need to watch that episode through. You need your child to know they can actually handle seeing someone else upset and be safe at the same time.
Together with them.
It's not like just put this on and let them be scared alone, but it's don't bubble wrap your sensitive child so much to be like they're sensitive so they can't handle anything. Therefore, I'm going to turn off Daniel Tiger, and then actually confirming to the child, I can't handle things like that. And I actually I need someone to save me when someone has a difficult emotion and I'm there. So we talked about that a lot in the episode I was on yesterday, where it's not leaving your sensitive child alone to be like, here, figure out the world, make sense of people's emotions. And it's also not, you can't handle it, you're too sensitive, so I'm going to just protect you. But it's being alongside of them, showing them what they can handle, giving them the extra time to handle it, extra coaching support. Otherwise, it's kind of what you're saying, where we're saying kids are sensitive, we're bubble wrapping the sensitive kids, and then they are becoming more sensitive and then they can't tolerate it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, that does definitely make sense.
But to your ADHD neurodivergence piece, this is where I was like, how controversial do I want to be? Tell me what you think about this. But I've just been thinking about this a lot. Like, I'm seeing kids as young as 3, 4 being diagnosed with ADHD. And when I look at their life, it's typically around the time where they've just had something really difficult happen. So their parents got divorced, they had a new baby enter the family, they moved, like something big has happened during their life. And what I'm wondering and concerned about, and I'm talking about the young kids, is that you have a sensitive child who's just been through something huge and their parents, no fault of their own, just don't have skills to support them through the big change. So what happens? They have a feeling of alarm bells kind of going on through their body. And when your body's alarmed, even for me, even when I'm overtired, when my body's alarmed and it's not calm, we have less ability to pay attention to things. We have bigger meltdowns or bigger feelings of anger. It's harder to sit still because you're just antsy, right? You have like big things.
You have that anxious energy.
Yeah, you have anxious energy, right? Which I like just calling all of that alarm, like the anxious energy, the anger, like all of those things. There's like alarm bells going off in your body. So then a parent's like, I don't know how to help this child. And their emotions are so big, they can't sit still, they can't pay attention. They take them to the doctor and they fit all the criteria for ADHD, but also they're 4 and their brain hasn't had time to mature and develop, and they've just been through a terrible life change. So of course they're going to meet the criteria for ADHD. It's the perfect thing. You have a brain that hasn't developed impulse control, reasoning, logic, all of those things, and they're sensitive, and they've just been through something difficult. And now by age 4, they're diagnosed with ADHD. So I feel like I'm seeing that more and more and more. And it's not to say they don't have ADHD, they very well might, and we're just catching it really early. But my concern is that instead of getting the help that they really need to teach their child, and help them like lower the alarm in their body and soften these defenses and connect with them and give them the skills, we're just like, oh, that's just how they are because they have ADHD, but we're not actually helping the child.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I see where your logic is there. I mean, as an adult, often people will go to the doctor, be like, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling depressed because of this. Like one common reason for people to go on anti-anxiety medications is, let's say, going through a divorce. Mm-hmm. But they will typically wean themselves off after that period of the highest level of anxiety is kind of gone.
Yeah.
Is your concern that those children, let's say they're being medicated early, that they're just never going to get off the medication? Because also from what I was reading on ADHD, just because I have it, I'm trying to read research on it now.
Yeah.
I understand that if you catch a child with ADHD early enough and you intervene with medication, but then on top of that, you also do all of the other things, like maybe you do therapy for a situation like that, or you create a better environment in the school for them to learn, that they are less likely to have to be on it as an adult, and they can their brain can be rewired in order to not have to use it anymore. Yeah,
and so let me be clear. I'm actually not against medication for children with ADHD for those exact reasons. And sometimes I find, especially for the kids who have been through such complex trauma in those early ages, we can't even get their body to not be in this constant state of alarm. Like, it's much harder to do so without the medication. And sometimes the medication can work hand in hand with the therapy so that we can actually get them to calm the alarm down in their body because the medication's helping them be able to think clearly and stuff like that. So in no way am I against the medication, and every family has to make that decision for themselves. I have families who medicate their kids early and families who have no interest in that, and we see what we can do without it. I think my concern with this is that I'm often not seeing the medication and the diagnosis of ADHD combined with any education for the families on what this means, how to help their child, how to calm their alarm system down. So it's almost like, okay, yep, your 4-year-old meets the criteria for ADHD. Here's the medication, and check back in with me in 5 months.
Good luck to you.
That's,
okay. I understand that.
That's the majority of clients I see. And it's like, when I ask them questions, it's like, well, yeah, we got divorced at that same age, and this happened, and he's yelled at all the time, and this, and it's like.
So what you're saying is you don't love the fact that these children are being diagnosed with ADHD because they're highly sensitive and they're going through life circumstances that manifest in ADHD symptoms. And also they're not getting the additional help that they really, truly need. They're just being medicated.
Exactly.
So those symptoms are just being medicated out of them.
Yeah, and sometimes not even, right? Yeah. And like they're on the medication, it's a little bit better. I often see that. And then that's where therapy's a perfect time. So it's like, great, they're on the medication. Now we can actually help them in other ways. But I think my issue is when we just put a label on something, but we don't get to the root of what's actually happening. And I think that's happening in so many kids. And parents are like, oh, perfect, we have an answer. Not to parents' fault, but no one's ever saying, okay, above and beyond this, here's how we can help and support your child.
Well, the reality is, what do any of us know about ADHD and why it happens, where it comes from? Sensitivity, same thing. Like, we know so little about it. So then how, it's on the medical community to actually teach us this.
Yeah, I know.
But then it's also, you have to get through everyone. Like in Canada, we don't have enough doctors, so it takes a long time to potentially go to the hospital, or some family doctors are next to impossible to find. So you're kind of like getting through everyone as quickly as you possibly can.
Well, I know, and I think that's my problem is like parents will come in like being like, I thought we had the answer. And the doctor, we had like a 15-minute consultation. They told me nothing about what ADHD even means.
Right.
And now he's on this medication for 7 months and things have improved a tiny bit, but not really. And this is where and I'm just seeing this constantly. So my problem is not the ADHD diagnosis or even the medication. My problem is thinking that that's the answer for all these other things that are going on that maybe led to the child being in that spot.
Now, I mean, this is a major, we just went fully off track here.
Yeah.
But is that just because, like, how many kids for the ones that you actually see are all better after going on the medication? Like, that's the problem with it's a bit of confirmation bias, right? Because those are the families that you might be seeing, but you're not seeing any of the other ones that are doing well either. So it's possible what you're saying is correct, but I also just I
do have a sample bias because of who's coming to me. But I also have, I feel like I've spoken to countless professionals who feel the same way in my field.
No, I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong. I want to caution that just because that's who you're seeing, it doesn't mean that's the norm.
I think that's important. I think it's an important caution.
Thank you so much for listening to the first part in our 3-part series of talking about sensitive children. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We have a lot more to cover, and it was interesting enough that I was willing to record 3 separate episodes. It was long enough, and I kept my attention long enough that I actually was able to talk.
It was fascinating.
Yeah, it was.
Honestly, we could keep going and going past 3 episodes, but we decided to cut ourselves off for now. But we really hope you come back next week and join us for part 2 of the Sensitive Kids series. It's going to be great. Hey friends, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We are glad that you are here. If you enjoyed today's episode and found it interesting, we'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a rating and a review. Scott and I actually sit down together and read them all. A 5-star rating helps us share our podcast and get these important messages out there. Thank you so much for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you again next time.